Let's begin by taking a look at the major components of the ISX CM871 engine. The engine block incorporates a number of interesting features. All threaded ports are designed for metric straight thread O-ring fittings. The block contains an integral oil cooler cavity. However, the OEM portion of the cooling system must be designed to handle the heat rejection that comes with cooled exhaust gas recirculation. The cooling system package to handle this heat rejection is the same as previous ISX EGR engines. The crankshaft has been designed so that no counterweights are necessary on the number 2 and number 5 crank throws. The crankshaft gear, 60-tooth tone wheel, and crankshaft adapter are press-fit to the crankshaft. The crankshaft adapter and tone wheel are serviceable. Refer to the service literature for complete details. The connecting rod caps are held in place with 4 cap screws. These rods are drilled so that oil can travel through the rod and lubricate the piston pin. The ISX CM871 uses a one-piece forged steel monotherm piston. The full floating piston pin attaches the piston to the connecting rod. The pin is held in place using retaining rings. The ISX CM871 cylinder liner is a mid-stop design incorporating one lower O-ring seal to prevent coolant loss. A one-piece cylinder head is used on the ISX CM871 engine. The cylinder head houses the dual overhead camshafts. The injector actuating camshaft is larger and mounts on the fuel pump side of the engine. The valve and engine brake actuating camshaft mounts on the exhaust side of the engine. The fuel injectors are a hydromechanical open nozzle design. The injector sleeve relies on pressure from the injector to help it seal against the cylinder head. Without the injector installed, coolant is likely to leak past the sleeve and into the cylinder. Therefore, before removing injectors, the coolant must be drained at least below the injector level. As an alternative to draining the coolant, you can use the coolant dam tool, number 3824319, to hold the coolant in the engine while the injectors are out. With the valve cover removed, disconnect the engine brake wiring harness connectors from the brake solenoids. When loosening the rocker lever adjusting screws, do not use an air gun or other power driver. The nose pads are swaged into the adjusting screw, and excessive force can pull the pad from the adjusting screw. If you are replacing one injector, you can remove the injector without having to completely remove the valve rocker lever shaft assemblies. However, the associated injector rocker lever assembly must be removed. If the valve rocker lever assembly is not removed, the rocker lever adjusting screws must be loosened enough to allow the removal of the intake crosshead and pivoting the exhaust crosshead toward the exhaust side of the engine. This will require the valves to be adjusted after the injector is installed. To remove all of the injectors, remove all of the valve and injector rocker lever shaft assemblies. Do not let the rockers come off of the shafts during removal. Remove the crossheads. Mark the crossheads so they can be installed in the same position from which they were removed. On engines equipped with an engine brake, one of the exhaust valves has a pin that extends through the crosshead so that the engine brake rocker can open that exhaust valve. These pins are not retained in the crosshead and may fall out during crosshead removal. Loosen the injector hold-down clamp cap screw. Remove the clamp. A special puller is needed for injector removal. Insert the puller into the hole in the injector. Lift the injector out of the bore and remove the injector. Clean any debris from the injector bore. Install 4 new O-rings on the injector body. The O-rings are different sizes and must be installed in the correct location. Lubricate the O-rings with clean engine oil. Place the injectors in the injector bore. Do not attempt to seat the injector in the bore. Install the injector hold-down clamp and cap screw. Torque the cap screw to specification. The hold-down clamp will seat the injector in its bore as it is tightened. Install the crossheads, rocker shaft assemblies, brake solenoids, and brake harness. Valves, injectors, and the engine brakes must be adjusted correctly for the engine to operate efficiently. Refer to the service literature for the service interval for setting the overhead. Begin the overhead set procedure by disconnecting the battery. Remove the rocker lever cover. Tighten all of the injector hold-down clamps. Using a 3/4 inch drive ratchet and extension, bar the engine in a clockwise direction. Continue to rotate the engine until the C mark on the vibration damper aligns with the pointer on the gear cover. Check the valve rockers on the cylinders that correspond to the mark on the damper. If the rocker levers can be moved easily, the engine is in the correct position for setting the injector and valves for that cylinder. If the rocker levers cannot be moved easily, check the rockers for the companion cylinder or bar the engine clockwise 360 degrees, realigning the mark on the vibration damper with the pointer on the lower gear cover. Verify that the rocker levers for the cylinder to be adjusted can be easily moved. Loosen the injector adjusting screw lock nut. Back out the adjusting screw 1 or 2 turns. Tighten the injector lever adjusting screw to 70 inch-pounds. Hold the injector lever adjusting screw to keep it from moving and torque the adjusting screw lock nut to specification. Loosen the valve rocker lever lock nuts for the cylinder being adjusted. Back out the adjusting screws 1 or 2 turns. The intake valve lash is set to 14 thousandths of an inch and the exhaust valve lash is set to 27 thousandths of an inch. Insert the 14 thousandths feeler gauge between the nose pad on the intake rocker lever and the crosshead. Make sure that the feeler gauge is inserted fully between the rocker lever and crosshead. Tighten the adjusting screw until a slight drag is felt on the feeler blade. While holding the adjusting screw to keep it from turning, torque the adjusting screw lock nut to specification. Remove the feeler gauge. Repeat the procedure using the 27 thousandths feeler gauge for the exhaust valve rocker lever. If the engine is equipped with an engine brake, the brake rocker levers are adjusted at the same time as the valves. Engine brake rockers are adjusted in the same order, engine firing order, as the valves. The running clearance must also be checked. When the valve adjustment is checked as part of a routine maintenance procedure, it is not necessary to reset every valve to the preferred specification. If the intake valves are between 4 thousandths and 16 thousandths inches, and the exhaust valve lash is between 20 thousandths and 32 thousandths inches, valve readjustment is not necessary. If any valve is outside of these readjust limits, it should be reset to the preferred spec. Rocker levers are shaft-mounted and include roller cam followers. If the engine is not equipped with engine brakes, spacers are installed on the valve rocker shaft in place of the brake rocker levers. The engine brake solenoids are installed on the rocker shafts. One end of the engine brake wiring harness connects to the solenoids. The other end of the harness connects to the pass-through connector in the cylinder head. The ISX CM871 engine features a reusable rocker lever cover gasket and a one-piece reinforced plastic resin rocker lever cover. Before beginning any service procedure, especially when working on the fuel system, you should disconnect the battery for safety. To remove the IFSM, begin by disconnecting the wiring from the air pressure and temperature sensors. Remove the EGR differential pressure sensor connection to the wiring harness. Disconnect the fueling and timing actuators. Fuel shutoff valve, fuel lift pump, fuel pressure sensor, and the fuel temperature sensor mounted on the IFSM. To provide extra clearance and allow the wiring harness to move out of the way, disconnect the wiring to the oil pressure and temperature sensors. Remove the inlet and outlet fuel lines. Place covers over the exposed inlet and outlet. Remove the oil dipstick tube support and bracket. Disconnect the EGR actuator from the wiring harness. Remove the EGR mixer clamp the inlet hose for the air compressor, and the EGR tubing cap screws. Remove the 4 mounting cap screws for the EGR mixer. Remove the mixer venturi tubing assembly and the air horn gasket. Cover the inlet of the cylinder head so that no debris can enter it. Remove the cap screw that retains the cam position sensor in the head, and then remove the accessory mounting bracket located above the IFSM. Disconnect the fuel lines that carry fuel to and from the ECM cooling plate and the fuel supply and fuel drain lines. Place caps on the exposed inlet and outlet connection on the IFSM. Place caps on the fuel lines that were just removed. Remove the 4 remaining cap screws that mount the IFSM to the head. Remove the IFSM and the gasket. The gasket may be reused if it passes a visual inspection. To install the IFSM, hang the gasket and the IFSM on the 2 dowel pins. Install the IFSM cap screws. Install the accessory bracket and cam position sensor retainer bolt. Torque the accessory bracket cap screws, and then torque the IFSM mounting cap screws. Install the fuel lines, remove the cover over the air intake manifold and install the air horn gasket. Install the EGR venturi tubing assembly. Install the two EGR connection mounting cap screws into the EGR valve. Torque to specification. Refer to the service procedure for torque specifications. Install the air compressor inlet air feed and the horn connection on the mixer. Install the dipstick support and bracket. Remove the caps and install the fuel lines to the IFSM. Connect the wiring harness connections to the oil sensors, fuel sensors, lift pump, fuel shutoff valve, and fuel actuators. Install the EGR differential pressure sensor. Install the air pressure and temperature sensors in the intake air and reconnect the battery. The front crankshaft seal installation and removal tool is used to remove and install the front crankshaft oil seal. The rear crankshaft seal installation and removal tool is used to remove and install the rear crankshaft oil seal. The flywheel socket is a standard socket with an added shoulder to fit around the flywheel mounting cap screw flange. This provides additional contact surface area between the socket and the cap screw head. To remove the front crankshaft seal, remove the 8 nuts from the oil seal studs. Install the front crankshaft seal tool over the crankshaft. Due to the spacing of the nuts on the front oil seal, there is only one position of the tool that allows it to align properly with the seal. Install 3/4-inch cap screws into the welded nuts on the front seal. Install the center puller cap screw in the plate. Turn the center cap screw clockwise until the seal is removed from the gear cover. When installing a new seal, you must ensure that the crankshaft, seal, and lower gear cover opening are all concentric. To do this, the bolts holding the gear housing cover to the gear housing should all be loose. The lower gear housing cover bolts around the seal opening should be removed. Use a magnet to remove any shavings from the seal bore or crankshaft. Use a crocus cloth to polish and remove any deposits from the crankshaft or seal bore. Use a clean, lint-free cloth to clean the crankshaft flange and the seal bore. Make sure to remove all traces of oil film from the components. Use a fingernail to check the crankshaft end for nicks, burrs, and grooves. This seal is an integrated design with the wear surface included in the seal. The seal also retains the O-ring that provides the seal between the gear cover and seal housing during installation. The front crankshaft seal must be oriented correctly during installation. A welded nut on the seal must be at the 11 o'clock position for the seal tool to properly install and remove the seal. Do not use any type of lubricant to install the new front oil seal. Install the new front crankshaft seal by hand until the cover studs are through the seal carrier mounting holes. Install the front crankshaft seal installation tool over the end of the crankshaft in the correct position. Install 3 installation tool cap screws in the slots in the tool. Tighten the cap screws in a crisscross pattern until the tool bottoms out. Install the 8 seal mounting nuts. Torque the nuts to specification. Remove the installation tool. To remove the rear crankshaft seal, use 3 flywheel mounting cap screws to secure the rear crankshaft seal tool to the crankshaft. Install a drill pilot into one of the 1/4-inch holes in the seal tool. Using a 1/20,000-inch drill bit inserted into the drill pilot, drill a hole through the seal casing. Drill holes in the seal casing through the 5 remaining holes in the tool. Install 6 seal puller screws through the rear crankshaft seal tool into the holes you just drilled in the seal casing. Remove the flywheel cap screws from the rear crankshaft seal tool. Tighten the screw in the center of the rear crankshaft seal tool and remove the seal. Clean the seal mounting surface of the flywheel housing. Use a crocus cloth to polish and remove any deposits from the crankshaft flange. Any scratches that are visible can result in oil seal leakage. Use a clean, lint-free cloth to clean the crankshaft flange, making sure to remove all traces of oil film. Do not use any type of lubricant to install the new rear oil seal. Guide the rear crankshaft oil seal and installation tool over the end of the crankshaft. Finger tighten the 3 installation cap screws against the installation tool. Make sure that the seal is pressed evenly into the bore. Allowing the seal to cock in the bore can damage components. Tighten the cap screws no more than 1 turn at a time using a crisscross pattern. Tighten the cap screws until the installation tool seats against the flywheel housing. Remove the installation tool. The timing wedges are used to hold the injector and valve camshafts in the desired position during front gear train installation and timing. These wedges fit between flat machined surfaces of the camshafts and the wall of the cylinder head. Refer to the engine CPL for the correct wedge angle to use. The brake setting gauge is a 276/1000 of an inch feeler gauge used to set the adjusting screw for the engine brake rocker lever. The cylinder head lifting bracket is used to remove the ISX CM871 cylinder head. The design of this lifting bracket allows the head to be tilted during removal for clearance. The cylinder head socket is similar to a standard socket. However, the end of the socket has been machined flat to provide improved contact with the short head cylinder head mounting cap screws. A short extension has been included on the socket for improved accessibility. The 4-valve spring compressor allows all 4 valve springs for one cylinder to be compressed at one time. This tool is used to replace the valve seals without removing the cylinder head. The single valve spring compressor is used to compress one valve spring at a time. A 3/4-inch impact wrench is recommended for use in installing the cylinder head cap screws. These cap screws are tightened using the torque plus angle method. Although a standard torque wrench must still be used for the initial torque, this impact can be used for the additional 90-degree turn. To prepare to remove the cylinder head, disconnect the battery to prevent accidental starting. Drain the coolant from the engine. Save the coolant in a clean container so it can be poured back into the cooling system after the procedure is complete. Remove the turbocharger. Remove the exhaust gas recirculation valve. Remove the air compressor air inlet hose. Remove the air inlet connection. Remove the integrated fuel system module to provide clearance for injector camshaft removal. Refer to the fuel section of this program for additional information about IFSM removal. Remove the ECM and cooling plate. remove the rocker lever cover. Remove the cam position sensor and engine brake harness. Remove the rocker shafts, crossheads, and injectors. This procedure is covered in more detail in the fuel section of this program. Both the valve and injector camshafts must be removed to gain access to the cylinder head mounting cap screws. Begin removing the camshafts by removing the upper gear cover. Remove the injector and valve camshaft rear cover plates. Remove the two camshaft gears. Remove the valve camshaft retainer cap screws and retainer. Discard the O-ring and seals. Remove the valve camshaft. Rotate the shaft as necessary to align the camshaft with the bores. Support the camshaft as necessary as it is removed. The camshaft can be removed through either the front or rear of the cylinder head. Remove the two cap screws and the injector camshaft retainer plate. Discard the O-ring and seal. Remove the injector camshaft. Rotate the shaft as necessary to align the camshaft with the bores. Support the camshaft as necessary as it is removed. The camshaft can be removed through either the front or rear of the cylinder head. Remove any excess oil from the top of the cylinder head. Remove all 26 of the cylinder head cap screws. Using a hoist or other lifting device, remove the cylinder head. Some installations require the use of a lifting bracket that allows the head to be tilted as it is removed from the engine. Remove the head gasket. Refer to the Troubleshooting and Repair Manual and other service literature for cylinder head inspection and reuse guidelines. Install the new cylinder head gasket on the dowel pins in the engine block, making sure that openings in the gasket align with the passages in the engine block. Align the cylinder head over the dowel pins and lower it on the block. Use clean engine oil to lubricate the 26 cylinder head cap screws. Allow the oil to drain from the cap screws and install them into the cylinder head. The 22 short cap screws install under the rocker lever cover, and the 4 longer cap screws are outside the cover. The head of the cylinder head cap screws is relatively short. When tightening or loosening these cap screws, take care not to allow the tool to slip off of the head of the cap screw. Tighten all of the cap screws to the first torque specification listed in the service literature. Begin in the center again and torque all of the cap screws to the second torque specification following the same pattern. Using an impact tool, begin in the center again and tighten all of the cap screws an additional 90 degrees following the same pattern. Coat the valve camshaft bearings with lubriplate. Install the valve camshaft in the cylinder head. Install the retainer plate and cap screws using new O-rings. Torque the cap screws to specification. Coat the injector camshaft bearings with lubriplate. Install the injector camshaft. Install the retainer plate using a new O-ring and new seal. Torque the cap screws to specification. Install both the valve camshaft and injector camshaft rear cover plates and seals. Install and adjust the camshaft gears. More information can be found on other sections of this library. Install the injectors. This procedure is covered in more detail in the fuel section of this program. Install the crossheads. Install the rocker lever shaft assemblies. Adjust the valve and injectors as described in the overhead set procedure. Complete the installation by installing the upper gear cover, rocker lever cover, ECM, integrated fuel system module, air intake connection, air compressor inlet hose, turbocharger, and any other component removed during disassembly. Complete the procedure by filling the cooling system. The crankshaft has been designed so that no counterweights are necessary on the number 2 and number 5 crank throws. The crankshaft gear, 60-tooth tone wheel, and crankshaft adapter are press-fit to the crankshaft. The crankshaft adapter and tone wheel are serviceable. Refer to the service literature for complete details.